We've done some unhinged videos before, but today we're removing the hinges entirely. We've now talked for 2 years about how to do things in one of an almost infinite amount of right ways on this channel when it comes to writing and world building, but today we're turning things around, and now we're going to talk about writing and world building things the wrong way. You guys seem to like these kinds of videos. I really like making them. Perfect combination. Let's get started. So today we're on a mission to create the worst possible fantasy universe. You guys have gotten glimpses into the depths of my twisted mind through my allusions to protagonist Von Generic, too long absent from videos until recently. And so now we're going to combine all of those terribly wonderful ideas into one amalgamation of horror. So let's start with the big picture, shall we? If we're going to have a stupid world, we need to start with some cosmology. We need some gods then, or maybe just a god to start with. We'll say Zeus is our one god for this fantasy world. There's no Olympus, but we do have Blimpus and the Blimpians who fly across the sky in one of those Goodyear blimps. We need this because otherwise people would think we were copying the Greeks. We have one god now, and his name is Zeus, but not Zeus, Z-E-U-S. It's actually Z-O-O-S, because we're being original. Zeus is the god of lightning still, and has the unfortunate tendencies that mythological Greek Zeus did, because we want to make this world grimdark and disturbing. This ain't a world for kids, bro. So Zeus is the god of lightning. Absolutely nothing else, actually, but he's still the only important god because, for one thing, we won't be writing any powerful female presences in this world, no sir, and we don't want to bore the audience with details about other weaker gods that don't do anything important or have domains over boring things like agriculture and love. So why is Zeus more powerful than the other Blimpians despite only having control over lightning? Because he was first, of course. Why was he first? Because the Chitons, the giant space crabs that made this world, made him out of mud or something like that. So now we have Blimpus, the Blimpians, and our primary god, Zeus. This is already pretty peak, to be honest, and our world is already better than anything anybody is doing in those writers' workshops, or that anybody in a circle of friends who write could ever do. Definitely better than anything anyone in the J-Bat is making, especially the J-Bat himself. So now it's time to make our world. Now, thankfully, the quote, "Good authors borrow, great authors steal," means what I want it to, when I want it to. And so we're going to be taking this phenomenal map that you might recognize. It even comes pre-built in with borders and names. Of course, this is a fair use situation and we're just making something inspired by this map, so here is our legally distinct map for the purposes of our wonderful world. As you can see, I proved it in every conceivable way. We took out all those stupid borders and individual countries in the Greenland that just sort of clogged up the map and made it look ugly. Now all that's there is what's important: the Kingdom of Kingia and its eternal rival, the Empire of Evilia. Evilia, of course, has an improved, sharper coastline. We've also replaced the skull in the red land with our trademark Bork, for which we will sue anyone that uses anything even remotely comparable into the dirt. Even if someone uses a green character in general, we might sue them, even though the Bork is neither the first green character nor actually original. Oh, yeah, and then there's this yellow place. It's not important, so I made it smaller so it can feel bad about existing, and I'm also standing in front of it because you don't need to see it. You might ask about the rest of the globe, but on this flat Earth we've made, this is all there is. The world's borders cut off exactly where the map does, and you fall into the abyss if you try to go over the other side or something like that. Back onto important matters, we've made sure to revise the borders of our original landmasses along exact tectonic fault lines to replicate a very realistic feeling. If you tell me that I didn't actually do that, I'll tell you that you don't know my world's fault lines and you are therefore wrong and bad. This is a big deal because fictional fault lines in a fictional world are fundamental to the success of a fantasy novel. So after the exhaustive work we put into designing our own map, entirely unique from anything else ever seen before it, we'll take a break from working on the world for about 7 months, but we'll post obsessively on r/writing and r/worldbuilding about how everyone else is doing it wrong, and that the concept of conservation elaboration of detail means that I do not, in fact, need to elaborate about why anything is the way that it is in this world. But I will for you, my audience, because you guys are getting the inside scoop. With our pantheon fleshed out in perfect detail and a world map that would challenge Tolkien's and win, we can now work on governance and political systems. All right, the Kingdom of Kingia is a feudal monarchy. I only understand what one of those two words means, but they often go together, so that's what we're calling it. It's ruled by King Kingston of House King of the Kingdom of Kingia. There are noble families like the von Richendorfs, the von Snobbishes, and the von Buttholians. How do these work? How is power balanced between the central authority and the lords under it? What obligations do these lords have in serving the king? Well, they basically just do whatever King Kingston tells them to, unless they're evil. Otherwise, the system just works. Now for the Empire of Evilia, those guys are led by the Dark Lord Warlock the Evil. They don't have a government nor any system of organization, really. They just kind of do what Warlock the Evil tells them to, because he'll burn them alive otherwise. They do not think of rebelling despite their lack of consistent access to food or shelter, their lack of any access to even basic medical treatment, the constant violent chaos inherent to their lawless land, or the lack of paid vacation days. Oh, yeah, and there's also this land to the south again that doesn't matter. They have a king or a sultan or something who's in charge sometimes. And then there's also... We've now weaved an intricate web of political intrigue for our novels to explore as they go on, something the depths of which has never been explored before in media. Martin, eat your heart out. I think we can tackle magic and our protagonist somewhat simultaneously, because magic only matters in the sense of how our protagonist can use it. Everything else is incidental. So I think we're gonna go with a very soft magic system, the magic of imagination for our world. That is to say, mages can basically do whatever they think of. This system is great because it allows for ultimate creativity and allows me to truly express the depths of my genius through allowing magic to solve all sorts of problems in the plot. There can't be any plot holes if I magic them out of existence. However, we're smarter than those other world builders who do magic systems. We know that you've got to have limits on your magic system for it to work. Limits are lame and suck, of course, but we'll have them because otherwise they'll whine and complain about our masterpiece on reddit.com. So here's how the limitation works. You can cast a spell and the only requirement is being focused, whatever that means, to cast the spells correctly. But you only get to cast once. If you try to cast any more right away, you won't be accomplishing all that much. You've got to wait a bit to be ready to cast again. How long? Doesn't really matter, and it can vary from person to person. Sometimes, in desperate situations, you might be able to pull it off again pretty soon thereafter, but that'd be pretty rare. Our protagonist, of course, is able to cast about 3 times before needing to rest. Despite the unimaginable power that this broad system might allow for, including probably the ability to cast a spell that would allow one to actually cast more spells in a short period, we're only ever really going to use this to shoot fairly generic multicolored lasers at one another out of wands or staves. There might also be the occasional like fireball or lightning bolt, but only if the budget allows. We are writing a novel, by the way, and not a movie, but we know this will get a movie deal right after publishing, so we need to be thinking about these things. Sometimes there will be cool set pieces made by magic, like floating islands or impossibly large castles, but we can explain these away with someone cast a spell to make them do that, without considering how the scale of casting that kind of spell would actually be very different from someone using an essentially equivalent amount of magic somehow to cast a moderately sized fireball. But before we finish explaining how to make the best worst magic system ever, let's hear a word from our actually good sponsor, World Anvil. Writing is complicated. World building is complicated, especially when you're working with sci-fi, fantasy, or other speculative fiction genres. Keeping track of all the relevant information from characters to countries to magic systems can be tricky, and it's very easy to get very disorganized. World Anvil might just be the solution to those problems. It's got a ready-made template and format for all your writing and world building needs, making it easy to get all your information down and keep it in proper order. Need templates to keep track of character information? World Anvil's got it. Need an interactive map so you can develop the unique personality of each country, town, and village? World Anvil covers that. Need templates for magic systems? Once again, World Anvil has come prepared. Even timelines feature as something World Anvil can help you organize, and let me tell you, the histories of fantasy worlds get very detailed, and having a visual indicator to keep it all straight can be invaluable. All put together, it can really get you that wiki vibe where all your world building is part of a solid ecosystem, where you can jump from one topic to the next with ease and add to any given subtopic as needed. So, if World Anvil sounds like the answer to your writing and world building needs, check them out at worldanvil.com and use the coupon code JBAT for a 51% off discount on any yearly membership. That's worldanvil.com, which will be linked in the description below. Once again, that's code JBAT for a 51% off an annual plan, and thank you for not skipping the ad. Back to the madness. We're almost done with the magic, of course. One might say that anyone looking to take over the world could cast a spell that would do just that, perhaps a spell of make me emperor of everything and take magic away from everyone else. But unfortunately for those no-good world-conquering types, there's a set of laws established about the use of this magic that has been in place for 1,000 years, and has never once changed. What exactly those rules are will never be specified to the audience so that they can assume that those rules simply disallow anything that would cause a massive problem for the plot, but the important thing is that literally everyone follows this magical law code, including conquering tyrants, despite there being absolutely no enforcement of these rules beyond it being implied to be bad if you break them. Having no stated consequences means that we can have our cake and eat it too. The villains will be restricted from doing anything too crazy because they fear the consequences, but they can actually break the rules if we need them to for the plot's sake without it affecting them too badly. They would never exploit this, of course, because our villains will naturally be bumbling idiots. This still leaves us with a lot of potential and the possibility of characters other than our protagonists being powerful, and that is a big problem for us. So now we need to figure out how exactly to limit the magic. I know how. You're born with it, and that is the only way anybody ever gets magic. No matter how much you study it, you can never hope to get any magic unless you are simply talented. Despite this, there will never be an abuse of the system by those who are born with magic against those who aren't, nor will this ever be used to set up an interesting social conflict between those with and without magic. You see, there's a potential for implementing themes here, and those are scary and subtlety is for cowards, so we need to veer away from that quickly. It only actually matters that our protagonist has it, but they probably don't know that they have it right away. They probably wake up one day, say at age 11, and then suddenly cast a spell that allows them to talk to animals. And then they realize they're special and everyone else around them sucks, and now they can go to a magic school to study the lores. That being the case, despite the fact that there really isn't much need to train with a magic system that does whatever you want it to, whenever you want it to, and doesn't even have like a monkey's paw effect or a risk of really backfiring. Magic school will also be irrelevant for our protagonist because they'll simply be better at magic than everyone else there, including the professors and the headmaster. But we're really only putting them in a magical school so that we can merchandise out the different houses in it, of which there are 3. House Good Guy Smiles, House Bad Guy Fists, and House Nobody Cares. House Nobody Cares will be implied to be really important and have interesting characters in it, but we're never really going to mention them. There was actually going to be a 4th house as well, House something or other, but we decided that for the sake of conservation of detail, we'd combine them and House Nobody Cares so we can really get all we can out of the concept. Anyway, House Good Guy Smiles will be behind every good thing that happens at the magic school, and House Bad Guy Fists will be literally irredeemably evil, and despite the headmaster and professors of the school nominally being good people, they'll do absolutely nothing about this. Also, House Nobody Cares will remain popular among fans as the hipster choice of best house, despite their name being mentioned once at the beginning of the first novel, once more in passing in the 3rd novel, and then a final time in the 11th novel when one of the characters asks what the names of the houses of Pig Pimple Magic School were called. It's at this point, for no reason at all, that we think about potentially actually setting Pig Pimple School right in the center of New York and ditching our fantasy universe, where it remains hidden because of magic, and no non-magical person ever questions all of the extremely conspicuous, obviously magical things that happen in the direct vicinity of Pig Pimple Magic School. But we've already put in so much arduous labor making our fantasy world map that I think we need to cast that idea aside and press forward. I think about now we can worry about things like culture. We've made things easy for ourselves so far, and importantly made things simple because readers are stupid. We already know they cannot handle more than 3 countries, so let's not burden their tiny minds with a ton of cultures either. So there will be exactly 3 cultures in this world. First, for the Kingdom of Kingia, let's be inventive, let's be unique, and choose medieval England. I don't think I've ever seen that one before. Now, I could research medieval England or read epic poetry like Sir Gawain in the Green Knight to get an idea as to what a culture inspired by medieval England might look like. But that'd actually take some effort and more than 1 or 2 hours, so my one watch through of Monty Python and the Holy Grail 3 years ago should suffice as a nuanced and authentic historical basis from which we can base this culture. There'll be a culture of knights and knighthood and knightly chivalry. What does the part of society that isn't part of the knight class do? I don't know. The peasants farm stuff and the priests preach about Zeus. Is there a cultural clash or something to be done with the mixture of Greek theological inspirations and English cultural inspirations? Maybe, but we don't really have time to explore that, and the audience wouldn't pick up on it anyway. That also basically solves our geography problem. Worrying about things like biomes or climate in Kingia is boring, so we're just going to say that this entire landmass is basically like England. Gray and always cloudy, which will help establish our grimdark tone, except for when the protagonist does anything cool, during which it will be sunny and bright. The culture for the Empire of Evilia, meanwhile, is going to be even more nuanced and unique. Say, let's give all of their characters vaguely Eastern European names, because they sound evil to me. I mean, a guy named Casimir? Someone named that might as well be named Lucifer. Borislav? More like Beelzebub. I don't actually know anything about that part of the world and only pretend to know anything about medieval England, and so the culture of Evilia is basically just that they kill things and enslave people. They don't do agriculture because bad guys don't have farmers, and they're basically all just barbarians. I might even call them savages in the prose. And all of their land is basically just one like volcanic wasteland. But we did make them green-skinned, intellectually distinct creatures called Borks, so this still won't feel strange at all to an audience who looks at this. I've very clearly made the distinction that these are not meant to be analogous to any actual real-world culture, so my main bad guy, Warlock the Evil's real name being Sviatoslav Slavovich Slavov, will pass unnoticed. And if it doesn't, we'll just theme them after some Middle Eastern culture or maybe China. Anyway, the people of Evilia basically live in constant misery under Warlock the Evil's tyranny, and there is absolutely no redeeming features to their quality of life. But as said earlier, they will never rebel nor complain, and will in fact enthusiastically serve Warlock the Evil. For a third culture that goes to whatever it is that's down here, it's themed after ancient Egypt and Arabian Nights. That's it. There's probably a leader down there named Jafar. You might be thinking at this point, but J-Bat, you've forgotten our protagonist. Not at all. The protagonist will be the best possible thing, an unsubtle self-insert. Naturally, that means he's perfect at everything all the time, and everybody likes him all the time, even when he's wrong, which he never is. He's also powerful enough to cast 3 times in a row, as you might remember. You might then ask about how the story will have literally any tension. I would tell you that tension is a word used to describe the force acting on protagonist Von Generic's muscles as he pulls cats out of trees or saves damsels in distress from burning buildings, not a fundamental element of storytelling. We're all basically just here to watch him aura farm, right? And as for his desires, his wants and needs, he wants to be the best wizard ever, and also king, and these will both happen by book 1, but we'll still put about 12 novels into the series. Anyway, I think that's about done it for us today. Hopefully now you know how to write the best fantasy world ever conceived, and have learned something from all of my excellent examples on how to do things perfectly, because there's only one right way to do writing after all. Anyway, if this sounds like a place you want to be, we have a Discord if you want to hang out with my editor and I, and a Patreon if you're crazy enough to want it, where I post all our videos early. As we close out, I'd like to thank our patrons, Shadowrunner, Sani, Isaac Parrott, Raymond, Don, Sadako, Cavalier, Sazabi, and Shield Guildmate Fenya of the Knights of the Inner Circle, Vion and Jody on Void are knights, and Greer, TOW, Craig, Victoria, Lauren, and Noah are loyal squires. And remember, my self-insert OC protagonist is better than yours.